Jaylen Brown potentially landing in San Antonio with the Spurs, and are they about to ruin their shot at winning a championship in the near future because they're too focused on the wrong thing? That, and no one loves Bradley Beal. I'm sorry, Bradley. It's the way that it is. New report out of Phoenix about just how badly they want to get Bradley off their roster. I'm
Stop,
Trevor.
Trevor.
This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're off to a great start here. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. This is John Gambadoro in Phoenix.
The Beal date.
If Bradley Beal wasn't making tens of millions of dollars, I would feel bad for him. The Suns 100% don't want Bradley Beal to return. Water is wet, right? I mean, not a surprise. I don't know how they move him. He's got the infamous no trade clause. He's making way too much money, over $50 million. But still, like, the sourcing from the Suns saying, we don't want this guy back.
It's crazy,
man. It's a cold world out there,
right? I don't know that I've seen a report like this where they're just like, "No, we don't want this dude to come back. Wherever he's at vacationing, tell him just to stay there. It'll be all right. We don't need him to come back." Yeah, that's really interesting and pretty unfortunate for Beal because the only reason they're in this situation is because they pushed for Beal, knowing that he had full control over whether or not they'd be able to move him before the contract expired. And they got to a point where they really were desperate to move him and were unable to do so, which also probably by extension soured their relationship with KD. They probably didn't want to have that happen because they pivoted to trying to trade KD to just make something happen. And everything kind of blew up in their face, all because Beal refused to get traded. But I've always said, you knew that could happen, and that's his right. If he doesn't want to leave, he doesn't have to leave, so... I guess they feel like he's squatting at this point, and he's allowed to stay.
They just can't get him out. And now Matt Ishbia is saying, the Suns owner is saying he's going to get more involved, that he was too hands-off before. I don't know if that was the problem, Matt. No. I don't know if that was it.
But he was too hands-on before. I thought
that was my impression. But I would be surprised if they find a taker for Bradley Beal. You never say never in the NBA. Crazy things do happen. But $54 million under contract this year. Oh, look at that beautiful player option for next year, $57 million on the books for next year. It's just too much money. And with that no trade clause, which would transfer with him if he were to be traded, I think they're going to have a hard time moving Bradley Beal. We're at a point where they're going to start like pulling pranks on Bradley Beal and stuff. They're going to slash his tires. They're going to do all kinds of terrible stuff to Bradley Beal. They're going to replace his shampoo with hair remover and all this, all just to try to like make his life miserable and get him out the door. Do you ever see Ocean's 13, that movie?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's a good one. Anyway, they do all these terrible things to this guy that's supposed to be reviewing the hotel. That's what they're going to do to Bradley Beal. Give him a skin rash and all kinds of just crazy stuff. That's how unwanted in Phoenix Bradley Beal is at this point, and I feel for him.
Yeah, I do as well, but it's also hard to feel when he makes $54 million. Anyway, I thought maybe next year he would have a decent chance to get traded, but like he's got that no trade. That would be an interesting contract to try to sell to a team, but he's got that no trade. So no matter what team you talk to, no matter how good the deal looks, if Beal says no deal, there's no deal. So it is what it is. But I do wonder, we've long talked about Beal and his no trade clause and how this trio didn't really fit. With KD out, I wonder if there is a world where these guys fit better because there's two instead of three. And maybe this team functions and performs better with Beal and Booker. Now, that's not to say it will be better than it was when it was just KD and Booker. I don't know, but better than the three of them together, right? Because they grossly underperformed last year.
100%. If you get defense, rebounding, rim protection around Beal and Booker, you could wind up as a net positive, even though you're losing Kevin Durant. Obviously, the preference would be to keep Kevin Durant and Booker and not Beal, but that's not going to happen. They're going to move Kevin Durant. So I could see that potentially happening. Look, we see it with our Lakers, where the numbers say LeBron and Luka, Austin and Luka is better than the duo is better than the three of them together. We'll see if that perpetuates into the future. But sometimes when you get these guys who have these overlapping skill sets, having just two of them is actually better than three of them because you have more other guys on the floor that can do, the dirty work, the defense, the rebounding, and all of that. All right, but our main topic here, it's Jaylen Brown now being identified as a candidate to land with the San Antonio Spurs. Now, we know the Spurs are a team that they're a clear landing spot for top tier talent. They've got that number 2 overall pick that they have to potentially dangle. They've got the reigning rookie of the year and Stephon Castle. They have the former rookie of the year in Victor Wembanyama, who is ready to win right now. The West is absolutely insane. So this is what Chris Mannix said about the Celtics, who need to offload salary. They need to get below that second tier apron. They probably need to move like $30 million in salary off their books. Well, guess what? The San Antonio Spurs happen to have about $30 million in cap space. And Chris Mannix says the team I'd watch the closest with Jaylen Brown is the Spurs. Sure, I think the Spurs would love to make a run at Giannis, but do the Bucks ask for Stephon Castle? Like, is that on their wish list? And if it is, I can't see San Antonio doing a deal like that. And then one of the concerns people in San Antonio told me is you go and deal for a guy like Giannis, all of a sudden you've created a championship window, but it is a window with a closing date. You've got De'Aaron Fox, who's in his late 20s, Giannis in his 30s, and the last thing they want to have is a roster after those guys kind of age out when Wemby is maybe looking around going, all right, where are the young guys I'm going to play with after that? So essentially the belief is here that they would have to give up Castle to get Giannis. Maybe they wouldn't have to give up Castle in order to get Jaylen Brown, and that would then be the preferred option for the San Antonio Spurs because they're worried about some distant future where Wemby could look around and De'Aaron Fox and Giannis have aged out. But Donnie, to me, this is the height of stupidity. Like, why would you worry so much about 5, 6, 7 years from now if you can really go win a championship right now? If you can get Giannis, go get Giannis. Why would you let I like Stephon Castle, but why would you let Stephon Castle prevent you from getting Giannis Antetokounmpo? To me, that makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, and I think he's great. I think Stephon's great. But like you said, I wouldn't let that be the barrier between me potentially being able to get Giannis and moving forward with that team, because you've got another 5, 6 years at least, right? And then I think it's also flawed logic because, like, Wemby is going to be late 20s at that point. Who's to say he even wants to play with younger guys at that point? Maybe he's looking for more veterans. You'd hope that the team was also able to retool in that period as well, get some younger blood in there because the CBA is going to force you to do that anyway. I think that there's a lot of different ways. If you really sit down and think about it, you can say, that doesn't quite add up. So I think that's just mostly an excuse, but I don't want to, like I said, make it sound like we're downplaying Castle. I think he's going to be really good in the NBA.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's going to be, a Giannis equivalent. So that's more or less where I would think that that's better off. And I think Wemby's ready to win now. I don't know that you need a lot of young guys around him right now, just kind of, twiddling your thumbs, barely making the playoffs. I think that there's so much parity right now that there's no clear-cut team, and you can put yourself in that mix. And I would like your chances with some of the guys they've got.
Yeah, if you get Giannis, if you're San Antonio, you put Giannis and Wemby together and with De'Aaron Fox, you're instant contender. You're an instant contender. And if NBA history has told us anything, it's don't wait. If you have an opportunity to go win, because there are no certainties. Look, the Thunder are the cautionary tale from years ago, not this year, from years ago when they made the finals, they lost to Miami and everybody said, oh, well, they'll be back. They never got back. If you have a chance to go win, you have a chance to go get somebody like Giannis and pair him with Wemby and win right now, get Giannis and go win. Yeah. Don't worry about 7 years from now, 8 years from now, when De'Aaron Fox is 36 or something like that, and you're worried about, oh no, now these guys are too old to play with Wemby. We really need Stephon Castle. Who knows what Stephon Castle's going to be at that point too. So to me, if that's really the prevailing thought in San Antonio, that, let's get Jaylen Brown instead of Giannis, because then we could keep Stephon Castle. To me, that's crazy. Look, Jaylen Brown is very good. Giannis is an all-time great. Go get the all-time great, especially when there's only 1 year. Giannis is 30, Jaylen Brown's 29. There's 1 year separating the two. Get out of here. Go get Giannis Antetokounmpo if you can do it. My Lakers obviously wouldn't like it if the Spurs got Giannis, but to me, that's absolutely crazy. Also, though, Donnie, I don't see the Boston Celtics actually parting with Jaylen Brown. I just don't. Yeah. I think they're going to move other guys to clear the salary that they need to.
Yeah, I don't think they'll trade him either. But I do think that there's a slim chance, like I was telling you, that if they really wanted to clear salary and then just retool this team, I think Brown is the pivot piece, assuming that you're not moving Tatum, of course. But I think he's the pivot piece. You can move him, maybe move Kristaps, Holiday, those guys, and then retool this team around the fact that you've got a gap year next year and then come back the following year and potentially be better for it. I mean, you're looking at 31-ish year old Brown at that point. Like, I think that also matters. So, but I if you ask me if I think they're trading him, I don't think so. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you look and you see the Boston Celtics, they have their 2026 pick. So a gap year situation could be a real thing where they could say, "Hey, let's bottom out. Let's go get AJ DeBonsa and let's make this let's make this go here. Let's the Warriors maybe didn't capitalize when they got Wiseman and they got the number 2 overall pick, but the Boston Celtics could do the same thing. They could jettison some talent. They could have a down season. They know Jason Tatum's going to be out most of the year. They just tell Tatum, "Hey, you know what? Don't worry about coming back. Just take the whole year and we'll see you next season. In the meantime, we'll drop some games for now. And if they can get some kind of a haul for Jaylen Brown, then there you go. And maybe you're able to lose enough games to cash in on the lottery. And then you've got a bunch of young talent, a returning Jason Tatum, plus a stud player that you got in the 2026 draft. And then you've reset your math. You've reset your salary cap math. So I think there is some appeal to doing that. I just think the preferred method of doing it is not going to be moving Jaylen Brown. Instead, it's going to be Drew Holiday. It's going to be Kristaps Porzingis. Yeah. I think Derek White would, and I don't think Derek White is likely, but Derek White would be moved ahead of Jaylen Brown. Sam Hauser is another guy that they could move on from. So should teams make calls on Jaylen Brown? Absolutely, because you got to do your due diligence. I just find it highly unlikely, though, the Celtics are going to move on from him. And I think instead they'll go into the season and they'll do what the Raptors did with Brandon Ingram. Oh, your ankle's still bothering you a little bit? Go sit down right over there. No, bro. Jaylen Brown? Oh, did you? I thought you just stubbed your toe on that curb right there. Go sit down. You've got a week off now. You've got a week off. We're going to rack up some losses. You can still accomplish the same thing without having to trade Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next point, is that if they really wanted to bottom out to that extent, they could just tell Jaylen, "Hey, you also take this year off." Basically, you'll play a little bit, but you're not gonna be out there as much as possible because we don't want to win too many games, particularly in the East where it could be easier to win those games. I do wonder, like, if he would be down for that or not, because I don't know if he's got any conditions in his contract where he needs to play a certain number of games to get X, Y, or Z. That could be a thing too. I don't know, but yeah, I think you could do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if they move him. But if they do move Jaylen Brown, they could clear a lot of salary by trading him with a team like the Spurs. You could immediately cut, because the Spurs could send back roughly $20 million in salaries. That clears about that. There you go for the Celtics. You clear that $30 million off the books. You don't have to do anything else. And there you are. And you're all set now. You've reset your taxes and all that kind of stuff. So there is some logic to it. I'd be surprised if that's the path we go down. But again, if I'm the Spurs and I'm saying, well, I can keep Stephon Castle and maybe get Jaylen Brown, I'm assuming it's going to cost you the number 2 pick in this year's draft as well. Or, and that's, maybe that's more appeal for the Celtics, get the number 2 pick in this year's draft, plus get a high pick in next year's draft if you move Jaylen Brown. But if I'm the Spurs and I have to give up number 2 this year plus Stephon Castle to get Giannis, it's freaking Giannis. I mean, the guy's a multi-time MVP. The guy's I just think you do it and you put him with Wemby and you watch the rest of the NBA tremble in fear.
Yeah, that's my logic too. I personally think that those two would fit really good together. I do think that you would need to change their roster a decent bit. You need more 3-and-D guys on this roster, particularly around Fox, because those 3 together are all basically average 3-point shooters at best. So I think you need a little bit more around that, unless Wemby comes back as an elite 3-point shooter. But yeah, I think that's more or less what I would be looking to do with this team. But that's a good problem to have. I mean, having those 3 together is great.
Well, and if they're a cap space team, you would then have the room exception. You would have, what is it off the top of my head? It's like $8 million. You would have something to spend there, veteran minimums, and they would immediately become one of the favorite landing spots of veterans looking for a ring to chase. So I think it makes too much sense. Look, this talk here about San Antonio, they're worried about their championship window by getting Giannis or whatever. Man, To me, that's just a red flag. I hope this is just smoke from San Antonio. This is just them trying to maintain a little bit of leverage here, and this isn't actually how they think about things. Because you've got an opportunity here. If you really have a chance to get Giannis, and we don't even know for sure if Giannis wants out just yet, but if you have a chance to get Giannis, go get him. Don't worry about this.
Could you imagine that 2-man game with those 2 7-footers? My God.
Imagine the defense.
Right. You're not doing anything
on them.
You're not doing anything. Oh my God. By the way, Wemby shot 35% on 3 on 9 attempts per game. Firstly, his big butt taking 9 threes a game is crazy. But
I think he took too many. I think he took too many threes.
35% though. I'm not mad at 35 on 9 attempts, to be fair. But he took too many. But if they get Giannis, unless they got some sniper out there, he's gonna have to keep that volume going because Giannis doesn't take a ton of threes either.
True. So. Yeah, I mean it's important that that's a threat for him.
Yeah.
But I think the big takeaway from all this though, Donnie, is the San Antonio Spurs. They're probably going to get somebody. I don't think they just keep the number 2 pick, honestly, despite all the stuff they're putting out there about how they don't want to move it and all that kind of stuff. I think they do get somebody. If it's Jaylen Brown, if it's Giannis, if they wind up, I wouldn't give up number 2 for Kevin Durant, but they could wind up being the landing spot for Kevin Durant as well. I think they get somebody that's going to catapult them right into the mix in the West. Of the next few weeks, I think it's happening. There's too much smoke out there about players X, Y, and Z being connected to San Antonio for them not to ultimately land somebody.
Yeah, they're going to go for it, I think. And especially if they can find that blend. That's what this article is mostly about, is trying to find the blend that allows them to get a star level player now, but also keep their youth, right? And I think that's one of the things that they're trying to do. If they can find the blend, I think they'll pull the trigger on it. I personally really don't think they should let that keep them from Giannis, but maybe you guys in the comments feel differently. So let us know how you feel about that, of course.
That's right. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. We appreciate all of you who have joined us on this basketball journey. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.